tells me that's where it starts. And then it comes up. And I never really put that together until you mentioned about how that works. That's fascinating.
So I want to ask you a question. Have you ever heard the phrase, that makes my skin crawl?
Oh, yeah.
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 Where does that start?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It isn't starting up here.
No,
okay?
it starts down.
So
Yeah,
here's the thing. We say that and we dismiss it. In the same breath that we say it, we dismiss it. It's like, oh, that makes my skin crawl, or he's a pain in the neck, or I've got butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah.
We say these words, these phrases that are in fact based in fact, because that is a physical feeling in the body.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure is.
But we don't think of it as a physical feeling. We think of it as an expression. We don't recognize that it connects to something. That those words actually are describing a physical feeling that we have. And that's an important thing to remember, because the truth is, as trauma survivors, frequently, as I mentioned, going through multiple years of yoga with a teacher that I thought didn't like me, and paying for the privilege, right?
No good deed.
Right, exactly. So, and today I can forgive that. Thank you. I can look at it and go, she didn't mean it. Yeah. But the thing is that, and I had a resentment against her because she'd done that, but yet I was still in the class.
Yeah.
Who was responsible for that, right?
Yeah.
But there I was. So the thing is that when we aren't present with where these feelings are in our bodies, we don't listen to them. And when we don't listen to them, we frequently put ourselves back into situations which, if we'd paid attention, we would know we're not healthy.
Yeah.
That includes,
This is not good for me.
Yeah, this is not good for me. That includes relationships with people who we shouldn't be involved with.
Toxic
relationships.
relationships.
Have you ever had the, I'm not asking you necessarily, but to the audience, have you ever had the experience of having a relationship with someone that was terrible, and then having another relationship with somebody else that was terrible the same way, and another one, and another one, and another one? That is what we do. We tend to recreate the trauma of our childhood.
Wow.
Right? So that's a scary reality.
It is
but
a
it's the
scary
truth.
reality. Yeah. Well,
But
no,
it's the truth.
we most of us, or many of us, know someone who just jumps from one toxic relationship to the next.
And they have a trauma history, I guarantee
and
it.
you ask, well, why do you subject yourself? You were married to an abusive alcoholic. Now the next person you married is an abusive alcoholic. Then the next one you married is an abusive
cocaine
addict. And the next one-
It doesn't matter, but it's just like that whole thing.
But we put a lot of shame on those people. Oh, you're stupid. Why do you keep, putting yourself in the same situation? And we tend to it's like victim blaming.
Well, that's exactly the case. And the thing that's sad about that is they blame themselves more than we could ever blame them.
Yeah.
And it only reinforces when we go, God, what are you doing? What are you, stupid? You know better than this. When we do that, we only make it worse.
We'll make it worse, yeah.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that gut feeling, right? Butterflies in the stomach. I've been around people who have had at a very moment something happened to them that triggered them, and the first thing they do is throw up. They just get so bound up.
Sure.
But it happens
that fast.
It's walking down the street, talking to someone, having a conversation, and then something happens. Maybe a loud noise. I know someone who when they hear the sound of a helicopter, this is going back to Vietnam, when they
sure.
Just the sound of a helicopter, it's instant, and then there's physical anguish.
Sure.
Along with with emotional duress, and it just seems to happen from one second to the next.
It doesn't take long. So the thing that's interesting too is we as trauma survivors have a tendency to do a couple of things. One is we get triggered by stuff, and it doesn't have to be like something exactly the same. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, so, you were with an abuser, and then you got another abuser. Mm-hmm. No, it could be as simple as somebody saying a word or a phrase in a certain tone of voice that can instantly trigger you.
Yeah.
It can trigger you to irrationality.
Mm-hmm.
It can also trigger you to something completely different, which is very interesting, which is dissociation, which is, I'm gone. I'm not present. That was one of the things that happened in my yoga training classes
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
early on, which is, the instructor would be up there, she'd be talking, and I couldn't tell you today what it was that she said.
Just blank.
All of a sudden, an hour later, I'm back in my body going, what the heck?
What?
Where did I go?
Yeah.
If you've ever had the experience, it's shaming to yourself, thinking, I wanted to hear this, and I don't have any idea what she said.
Yeah.
I missed it. I mean, I'm paying for this class. I
Sure.
want to learn this stuff.
Yeah. And then you don't want to go back and
And
say,
I don't want
well,
to
what did
say,
you
you know what,
say?
I didn't hear anything you
Yeah.
said. Can you, can you
Yeah.
repeat that? I want to, record you. Can I record this? Right? Because that was something that happened to me. It happens frequently to trauma survivors, is that they dissociate. They just go away. That's something that I can teach people how to recognize as it starts,
Yeah.
so that they can bring themselves back. Breath is a key to that. It's not the only key to that, but that's
Sure.
part of it. Dysregulation is the other thing, which is that, all of a sudden going bug-ass crazy,
Yeah.
right? It's like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
over something that was like somebody said one thing and you're just like nuts
Yeah.
because it's a trigger, because it's something that hit you from somewhere before. And until you start to acknowledge the history, until you start to learn about what's actually happening inside you, mostly we're unconscious of it.
So you can literally be a person who unknowingly, or actually let's not even try to pretend to be someone. Just say if you're yourself and you're dealing with a trauma survivor, it's possible, I guess, that they could completely misunderstand or misinterpret everything,
What you
whether it be
say.
a body language, something you said, an action you took, or something that might not even be related to them.
A facial expression.
Is that attached to, say, people who are dealing with a lack of self-confidence or self-loathing, or or self, people that really hate themselves?
I'm not going to say that every trauma survivor hates themselves, but they've definitely got an inaccurate picture of who they are, and frequently an inaccurate picture of who other people are. And I'm a good example of that from my past. So it's a reality, right? That our perception has been skewed by what it is that we have lived through. It is not accurate. And until we can come to terms with those things that trigger us, with those awarenesses, and bring a modicum of healing and peace into our own psyche, we are at the mercy of our trauma.
So I'm
And
guessing
that is not a good place.
I'm
to
guessing
be.
there's people out there, many people out there that are have suffered trauma, that are aware of all this, but they don't have the tools to you can't fix another person. They've got to do that themselves. That I learned just being a husband, right? But if there's people out there who are aware they have trauma, they're aware of how damaging that trauma is to their present, but they don't have the tools or really even the knowledge on how to apply that to themselves. Is that something that you could help people with?
Yes, absolutely I can. Yeah. Absolutely I can. And that is kind of the point, right?
Sure, yeah.
Is being able to look at those things, and you don't know at the time that it happens that there's something that maybe trauma, this maybe
Sure.
came from trauma, but you may have a sense of anger and blaming toward someone else.
Yeah.
And maybe it's justified. Maybe there's
Yeah,
legitimacy.
sure.
But if you think about it later and you're sitting there going, well, maybe I was a little bit, no, he deserved that. Because we justify our own, our own behavior, because we are so traumatized by life in general that we don't even recognize how our behavior is dysfunctional as well. And so, when you find yourself justifying your own bad behavior, that's a clue. But until you have that awareness of it, and you can talk to somebody about it and say, okay, so this, and this, and this, and they can listen to you, and without saying, no, you're wrong, but go, that's very interesting. What about this? And did you think about what happened here? And what happened for you there? Where did you feel that in your body? What was going on for you when?
Sure.
You start to get, and yes, that sounds like therapy, I know. Right? So that's important. So
Sure.
I call myself a yoga therapist and trauma coach, because that is what I work
What you do.
with.
Yeah. And is it common to where if someone dealing with trauma, their behavior becomes like, if you're married to a drug abuser or an alcoholic, that your way of dealing with it is you yourself becoming a drug abuser and an alcoholic. Or if you're dealing with someone, maybe you've gotten physically beaten as a child and now you carry that on and are physically abusive to your children. Is that something that happens?
Certainly the latter is true. If you have been abused as a child, that gets carried on a lot of times by the parents. That's and they justify it. Well, I lived through that. That was what my parents, spoil the rod, spare the rod, spoil the child, right? That kind of thing. That's for sure. I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen that people that are living with an abusive alcoholic become abusive alcoholics, because trauma happens in families. So is it true that that person who's living with the abusive alcoholic is being traumatized? Yes, and probably was traumatized in childhood? Yes. Is it also true that the alcoholic, the abuser in this relationship, was probably traumatized as a child? Yes. Has been traumatized in relationships? Yes.
Oh, what a tangled web we
It's not just that's the thing, is it's not just one person who's blameless and perfect and the martyr. We all have those of us that engage in these kinds of relationships all have trauma, and the alcoholic every bit as much so, sometimes more so, as the others in the family, because if you think about it, what better way to deal with unresolved trauma than to drink and drug at it and
check out.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So it's like, I'm checking out because I can't handle it. It's too much. It's too painful. Screw this.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I
and so they do. And when they say, screw this, I'm checking out, chances are they get, that what happens with alcohol and what happens with drugs is you lose your ability to think rationally, and so behavior starts to go sideways. Right. And so there you go.
Well, I'll tell you this, I have shows where an hour isn't nearly enough. And this is one of them. We're just about out of time, and I really wish we had a whole nother hour. I have so many questions. And I know that you have, yes, well, I was going to say you need to come back.
I will.
We got about a minute. Is there, and I'm going to put all this in my post-production video, phone number you want to give out or any information you want to give out now, like a website or something?
Absolutely. So you can find me at http://treatingtraumawithyoga.com, just exactly like what it sounds like. You can call me on WhatsApp, Celeste Mendelsohn, MENDELSOHN, and it is my U.S. number 818-400-3838, and my Panamanian number, which I still haven't memorized, but I will, is 6472-3445.
Great. And all that information will be out there Sunday or Monday once I get the video done. We are out of time. Celeste Mendelsohn. Yes, one more thing?
One more thing.
Yes.
You can email me at celeste@treatingtraumawithyoga.com.
Great.
That's all.
I want to thank you so much. This has been a fascinating show. You're a fascinating human being.
Thank you.
And I thank you for joining us. You've been listening to BoqueteNOW Talk Radio on Radio Cherokee 103.3 FM, sponsored by Big Daddy's Grill and the ACCB. We'll see you next week with 9/11 first responder Ron Parker.